Disclaimer: this content is intended for mature audiences only. Viewer discretion is advised. It all started on a quiet, humid summer night in the suburbs of Ohio. The air was still, the house silent, except for the rhythmic sound of the ceiling fan turning above me. I had just finished folding the laundry when I heard footsteps down the hallway, light, hesitant, then stopping altogether. When I turned, no one was there. But I could feel it, someone had been standing outside my door. Listening. My name is and this isn't just a story about family. This is about tension you don't expect, lines you don't cross, until one night, someone does. I'd only been married to Jenna for a year. She was older than me, confident, beautiful, and full of life. We met at a fundraiser, hit it off fast, and within 6 months, we were living together. She had a son from a previous marriage, Evan. 21, quiet, polite, kept mostly to himself. We didn't talk much at first, but there was always something in his eyes, something unreadable, like he was watching everything but saying nothing. Jenna worked long hours at a nearby clinic, often pulling night shifts. That meant the house was usually just me and Evan. At first, things were normal. We'd pass each other in the kitchen, make small talk over breakfast, and sometimes catch a game on TV. Nothing unusual. Nothing uncomfortable. Until one night, that changed. It was just past midnight. I was in bed, reading, when Evan knocked once and came into my room without waiting. He stood there, in the dark, his voice low and steady as he said, "I've heard you every night." I froze. He didn't say anything else for a moment. Just stood there, arms crossed, watching me the way someone watches a storm rolling in. The room felt suddenly too small, like the walls were closing in. I couldn't tell if he was angry, confused, or something else entirely. I asked him what he meant. He just smiled, slow, knowing, and took a step forward. That moment changed everything. What was he talking about? What had he really heard? And why did he choose that night to come in? This is not your typical family story. It's a slow burn of hidden emotions, blurred lines, and unexpected revelations. Evan wasn't the boy next door type. And I wasn't just the stepmom he tolerated. We were something more complicated, something neither of us had planned for. And the moment he stepped into that room, that was just the beginning. Before I tell you what happened next, just ask yourself, what would you do if someone you thought you understood suddenly revealed they'd been watching, listening, to your most private moments? Keep watching. Because after that night, nothing in our home was ever the same. Evan didn't say another word. He just stood there, letting the silence fill the space between us. My heart was pounding, and I wasn't sure if it was from the surprise, the tension, or something I didn't want to admit. I sat there, frozen in place, the book still open in my lap. He looked different in that moment, not like the quiet boy who barely made eye contact at dinner. No. There was something older in his eyes. Something aware. I asked again, softer this time, "Evan, what did you hear?" He tilted his head just slightly, like he was deciding how honest he wanted to be. Then, with that same calm voice, he said, "You talk in your sleep." I blinked. That wasn't what I expected. "Everyone talks in their sleep sometimes," I replied, my voice a little too quick, a little too defensive. But he just smiled again, like he knew more than he was letting on. There was a pause. Long enough to make it uncomfortable. Long enough for my thoughts to start racing. Had I really been talking? Saying things out loud? My husband was away for work the past few nights. Was I dreaming about him? Or something else? Evan finally stepped back, his hand lingering on the doorknob. "Don't worry," he said, turning his gaze away. "It's not like I heard everything." Then he left. Quietly. As if he hadn't just dropped a match into a room soaked with tension. I stayed awake for hours after that. The next morning, the air between us felt different. At breakfast, Evan barely looked up, but I could feel it, his presence, his awareness. Every time I moved around the kitchen, I knew he was watching, even when he wasn't facing me. I started replaying the last few days in my head. The little moments I'd brushed off. The way he lingered in the doorway when I thought I was alone. The soft click I heard outside my room late at night. It all started making sense, but not in a way I was ready to face. Jenna had no idea. She kissed me on the cheek before rushing off to another double shift, leaving me and Evan alone again in the house. Alone with something unspoken hanging in the air between us. And that was the problem. Once something is said, even just a little of it, you can't unhear it. Later that day, the house felt quieter than usual. Not peaceful quiet, more like the kind of silence where you notice every creak in the floor, every shift in the air. Evan had disappeared into his room after breakfast, and I tried to stay busy. I vacuumed the living room twice, rearranged the spice rack, even watered plants that didn't need it. But every now and then, I'd glance down the hallway toward his closed door, wondering if he was thinking about last night too. By late afternoon, I was folding laundry in the den when I heard the soft sound of the hallway floor again. Light steps. I didn't turn. I just kept folding. A long moment passed before he finally spoke. "Why don't you ever lock your door?" I froze. I looked down at the towel in my hands, smoothing it out slowly before answering. "Because I didn't think I had to." He leaned against the doorframe, his arms crossed again. His tone wasn't teasing, it was honest. Curious, even. "You sleep with the light on sometimes," he added. "Is that for you, or for someone else?" I turned to him now, trying to read his expression. There was something in his voice I couldn't ignore. Was it concern? Jealousy? Or something more complicated? "I've been having weird dreams lately," I admitted. "Maybe that's why the light helps." Evan nodded slowly, eyes still on me. "Yeah," he said. "I've heard you, whispering names. You never say my name though." That caught me off guard. I laughed lightly, trying to shake the awkward tension. I don't think I'd remember even if I did. But he didn't laugh. He just looked at me a little too long. We were quiet again, until I picked up the laundry basket and walked past him. I felt him watching me the whole way, and I couldn't tell if I was imagining the heat in his gaze or if it was real. That night, Jenna called to say her shift got extended. She wouldn't be home until after midnight. That left the house to just the two of us again. I tried to ignore how aware I was of it. I cooked dinner, simple pasta and salad. Evan joined me at the table, and for a while, we just talked. About movies, work, random stuff. It almost felt normal again. But then he said something that made my hand pause on the wine glass. "You know, sometimes I wonder if people get married for love, or just because they're afraid of being alone." I looked at him, my fingers tightening around the glass stem. "What are you asking me, Evan?" He just shrugged, but his eyes didn't match the casual gesture. "Just wondering," he said softly. "Because you seem like someone who still hasn't figured out what you really want." The air thickened. I didn't answer. I couldn't. Because a part of me knew he wasn't completely wrong. And maybe that was what scared me most. The rest of that dinner felt like walking a tightrope, every word, every glance, carefully balanced. Evan didn't push the conversation further, but he didn't need to. The questions he'd left hanging in the air stayed with me long after we'd cleared the dishes. I kept catching myself watching him, his movements, the way his eyes would flick to me and then quickly away, like he didn't want to be caught looking. Or maybe, like he wanted me to catch him. I poured another glass of wine and stepped out onto the back patio. The air was cooler now, crickets chirping in the distance. The sky had that deep indigo tint just before full darkness. I leaned against the railing, trying to settle my thoughts, but they kept circling the same point. What did he mean by all that? And worse, why did it matter so much? I didn't hear the screen door open, but I felt when he stepped out behind me. "You always come out here when you're trying not to think," he said. I turned halfway, surprised. "Is that what you think I'm doing?" He gave a small smile. "It's what I do too." He stood next to me now, close but not touching. The silence between us wasn't empty, it was heavy, thick with everything we weren't saying. The night felt still, like it was waiting. "You're not like I expected," he said suddenly. I turned to him. "Expected how?" He paused. "I thought you'd just be temporary. Someone passing through. But you're still here. And now, it's hard to see you like a stranger anymore." I didn't know how to respond. My heart was beating faster, but I wasn't sure if it was from the words or how close he'd gotten. I could feel his presence, warm and steady, right beside me. We were towing a line, and both of us knew it. I whispered, "Evan, what are you trying to say?" He looked at me then, eyes meeting mine for longer than they should have. "Maybe I'm tired of pretending I don't notice what's right in front of me." And in that exact second, the porch light above us flickered. We both looked up, startled, and just like that, the moment was broken. But the damage had already been done. Everything had changed. The porch light flickered again, then went out completely, plunging us into a soft darkness lit only by the moon and the distant glow of a neighbor's kitchen window. Evan shifted, just slightly, his shoulder brushing against mine. I didn't move away. I didn't say a word. The silence returned, but this time, it wasn't filled with hesitation. It was loaded. Heavy. And before either of us could say anything, the unmistakable buzz of a phone vibrated from the table inside. I stepped back, suddenly aware of everything again, the porch, the house, the choices I hadn't yet made. "I should check that," I mumbled, already turning toward the door. Inside, my phone screen lit up with a message from Jenna. "Leaving early. Be home in 15. Don't wait up Redheart." I stared at the screen longer than I should have. My fingers hovered, but I didn't reply. When I looked up, Evan was standing inside the door now, watching me. "Is she okay?" he asked quietly. "Yeah," I said. "She's just coming home early." He nodded, but the tension that had softened outside returned, sharp and immediate. Whatever had been simmering between us, it wasn't gone. Just interrupted. And now, with Jenna on her way back, the safe space for unspoken feelings was closing fast. I tried to shift the mood, but Evan didn't play along this time. His eyes followed me as I walked to the sink, rinsing my glass even though I hadn't finished my wine. Then he said something that caught me completely off guard. "She's not the only one who left early." I paused. "What?" He stepped closer, just far enough to keep his voice low. "My dad. He left her. Not the other way around. And not for another woman." I turned to face him, confused. "I thought she never told you the whole story," he said. "But I knew. I was old enough to understand." I waited, unsure what he was leading toward. His expression tightened, jaw clenched slightly. Then he added, "She's always needed someone to fill the space. And now you're the one in it." There was no accusation in his tone. It wasn't anger. It was something else, resentment, maybe. Or something deeper. Something that had been building under the surface for years. I suddenly realized this wasn't just about us. It was about him and her. About what had been lost before I ever entered this house. I said softly, "Why are you telling me this now?" Evan looked straight at me. "Because I don't think you see what's really happening here. Or maybe you do, and you just don't want to admit it." Before I could respond, the sound of a car pulling into the driveway snapped both of us out of it. Jenna was home. And everything that had been building, every unsaid word, every silent look, was about to collide with reality. The sound of the front door unlocking sent a jolt through both of us. Evan stepped back, slipping into the shadows of the hallway as Jenna's keys rattled and the door creaked open. She walked in wearing her scrubs, tired eyes and a half-smile on her face. "Hey babe," she called softly. "Sorry I'm early. My last patient cancelled." I forced a smile, heart still racing. "No, it's okay. I was just cleaning up." She walked over and wrapped her arms around me. Her touch was warm, familiar, grounding. I hugged her back, trying not to let her feel how tense I was. Over her shoulder, I saw Evan standing near the hallway entrance, still and unreadable. His eyes met mine for half a second, just long enough for something to pass between us. Not guilt. Not regret. Something else. Something unfinished. I'm gonna shower, Jenna said, pressing a kiss to my cheek before disappearing upstairs. Her footsteps faded, and I turned toward Evan, who was already walking away. We didn't speak again that night. But something had shifted. Over the next few days, everything felt strange. Jenna was more relaxed, unaware of what had almost unraveled beneath her roof. Evan stayed distant, hardly coming down for meals. I pretended everything was normal. Smiled. Cooked. Slept. But on the third night, I found an envelope slipped under my bedroom door. Inside was a single note in Evan's handwriting. I wasn't wrong. And I wasn't the only one listening. My breath caught. I stared at the note, rereading it over and over. What did that mean? I thought the tension was over, that we had let it pass quietly, unspoken. But then I remembered those nights when I'd felt like someone was outside my room, those creaking floorboards, the light breathing, the doorknob that had shifted just slightly. Evan had said he heard me. But now, was he saying someone else had too? I looked toward Jenna's closed door. The silence suddenly felt louder than ever. Was I the one being watched? I sat on the edge of the bed for a long time, holding the note in my hand, replaying every moment in my head. Evan's words echoed, I wasn't the only one listening. At first, I thought it was a warning, or maybe a confession. But as the quiet moments passed and I stared at the hallway, a colder truth settled in. This house had more layers than I'd seen. More silence that wasn't empty. More looks I had misread. What if Jenna had known all along about the tension, about Evan's quiet stares, the awkward energy that had been building between us? Maybe not the full extent, but enough to feel something was off. Enough to wonder what was really happening behind the closed doors of her own home. The next morning, everything looked normal again. Jenna was cheerful, sipping her coffee and talking about weekend plans. Evan came downstairs like nothing had ever been said, like no note had ever been written. But when he passed me in the hallway, he whispered just one thing: I wasn't trying to ruin anything. I just needed to know if you felt it too. I didn't respond. I couldn't. Because yes, I had felt it. And maybe, in another world, things would have gone differently. But here, in this home, with everything we shared, everything we risked, it had to end right there. Days passed. The tension slowly faded, replaced with distance. Evan spent more time out with friends, eventually moving into a place of his own a few towns over. Jenna and I stayed together, though something between us changed. Quietly. Subtly. Trust has a way of shifting, even when you don't say a word. I kept the note, tucked away in a drawer I never open. And sometimes, late at night, I still wonder, was I the one being watched? Or was I just waking up to the truth of what had been right in front of me all along? Love isn't always loud. Sometimes it's the silence that says the most. If this story stayed with you, let me know in the comments, what do you think Jenna knew? And should there be a sequel?